All right, so welcome to all those to the 2022 Williamson County Master Beef. Obviously, you start talking to individuals here and there throughout the program, you're going to find out it's a lot more than Williamson County. It's from counties all across the area, which we're really excited about. We feel like that means it's the quality program that we're offering. There's two sections to this, so we're going to start going through that. I'm going to give you kind of an outline of what the program looks like. But my name is Matt Horstman. Hopefully I've corresponded with most of you here and there, but I've not necessarily put a face to you. So I hope over the next 2 or 3 months, we'll get the opportunity to talk, discuss, and maybe even visit some of your farms. You guys got the pleasure of meeting Peyton Thomas. Peyton joined us in June of this past year. And so Peyton's going to be working with a lot on the helping out with adult agriculture programs and trying to add some technology components to it, some social media presence, some more how-to videos that are very short and sweet. Something we think has been missing from the program. It would be very helpful for you guys. And so hopefully adding a few more field days and things like that. So we're excited to have Peyton on board to do that. So, but we're really excited about this program, and we're going to start getting into some of the details. So tonight, just give you a general rundown. We're going to overview this program. My goal is short and sweet. Overview this program. I want you guys to really understand the structure since it's a little bit different. We're going to talk about some resources that will be available to you guys as you go throughout your farming days and your life. Things happen and you need to know who you can turn to help answer some of those questions. So we're going to go through some of that. The Ag Enhancement Program, obviously that's a big carrot in this whole component and this whole pie that we have of the Master Beef program, the Ag Enhancement, which is the cost share program. And so we're coming upon the eve of that program very soon. New items have been released, so we want to go through that whole program. We'll discuss it as we go every night because it's such an important part. And there are key components that you just can't make mistakes on. And so we want to make sure we get all those correct so that you guys can take full advantage of the program. And then we will finish it up with the VQA training. There's 2 options. So that's the mandatory training that you have to do to be able to apply for Ag Enhancement. It's a 1-hour session. It's actually going to be a little bit less than that. But there's 2 options. So for you, everybody that's in here tonight, everybody that's online, they're going to check that box that you'll see on October 3rd. There's another date for that time. You won't have to attend that session because you only have to do one of them. But you have to do that. So part of that is this paperwork. And so for those online, we send an email out. In that first email for class info 1, it has this document attached to it. So tonight, if you can, one for each registered person, if you could fill that VQA form out and leave it at that front, we have to have this to turn in when we submit your money and your application to make sure that you're qualified to apply for Ag Enhancement. So make sure when you're leaving here, you fill out a VQA form and leave it there. For those online, you can scan and email me a copy just the same. And so we'll finish up that VQA training out because some of the classes, good news, we're shortening it up even further. Some of the classes that we're going to do that are hands-on are going to cover some of these aspects. So we're not going to necessarily sit here and watch a video about that. So we'll go ahead and get that covered. For those that are just walking in a little bit later, just make sure when we get over finish the class, you'll just sign in and make sure we're here and then complete any of the VQA paperwork. We'll cover that at the very end. So we may have questions, so let's go ahead and get started. And then if you guys have questions or if there's questions online, you're welcome to put them in the chat or unmute and Peyton can help that. You guys just raise your hand or blurt it out and we'll ask questions. But I want to make sure that we have a good footing before we get started because there's a lot of moving parts to this, a lot of deadlines. One thing is I just don't want anybody to miss anything. I'm here to make sure that hopefully doesn't happen, but you ever have to worry about it, reach out and never hesitate. So first, we're going to get into just the general overview of the requirements. And so Peyton, if you wouldn't mind, so the reason why we're going to go right to the website, because this website, I tried over the years as we've gone through this, I don't know, how many of you guys have visited this website outside of registering. So we got a few. So I want to encourage you, and I'll send this each week. I will send you a weekly recap of what went on, any resources that we may have discussed that we could send it to you. Then I'll probably send you another email like with the link if there's going to be a Zoom session, a link with the next session, as well as the previous week's recording if there was a Zoom session. So I'll send you a lot of that. So if you have email, be checking it. You're gonna get at least one email a week from me with your updates. And so if you got a new email or I can send it to somebody else, please let me know. But bookmark some of these resources on here. So for here, this is a great Master Beef resource. So we're gonna this goes through a lot of the expectations and things you might need. So if you'll scroll down a little bit, we've made it that far. We made it through registration payment. So this is the schedule. This is the same schedule that everybody has in a paper copy. If they wanted one, for those online, they can look at right there. You know, one thing, so the difference between 2019 and here is this is the only class that we're going to be sitting in this room. And actually, because the fair exploded and now is coming back to earth to the facility, so they haven't had time to really set this place back, and they've actually done a remarkable job since the last time you guys, many of you were here. But it's still 4 brick walls, and it's, you don't want to spend how many hours you want to spend in here each day. So if you'll notice on here, almost every one of our in-person sessions is going to be on location. We're going to be on a farm, trying to do some different things, trying to do some basic hands-on things that are sometimes just beneficial to see in person. So good news is this last time we'll be in this actual room. We will visit this facility in our outdoor arena in October. That's our last in-person class. But the rest of the classes that you'll notice on there, if you'll scroll up a little bit, are all actually pretty central to Franklin, outside of 2 that are in Springfield at a research station. So the next one is 29th, next Monday. So if compared to where we're at here, if you'll head back to where Columbia Avenue and Paytonsville /Goose Creek crop, you'll head south on Lewisburg Pike there. It's probably about 4 or 5 miles down the road, so it's not too far. And then we've got one that's actually closer to Franklin, same on Lewisburg Pike. So everything is pretty close to Franklin area. So hopefully it's central as much as we can. It's a lot of it's going to be in person, hands-on things. So we won't be doing traditional speakers in here. The traditional speakers by topic, you get in nutrition, health, reproduction, things like that. You're going to see are these virtual topics. We haven't got the exact list of when and what. So what happened was, for those that have not been through the previous years, we used to have a speaker come in here. We had to cover certain topic areas. We had to cover one nutrition, one reproduction, health, all down the line. And so the speakers came in here. Well, there's a lot of different counties all across the state, and those speakers could only get to and from so much, and they've got road weary. It also limited the speakers that you could have. You had to only, we only have one reproductive section. And so there's a lot of great speakers out there, but they're not always in this area. You can always travel. So what's happened is they're going to start doing virtual sessions for the entire state. And they'll get speakers all from the southeast and beyond, whatever they think are the best speakers for those topics. And so that's where you'll start to see the virtual topics come into play. So you're still going to get opportunities for those. They're going to be webinar forms, so you won't have the interaction that you could just unmute and click and talk, because there'll probably be 1,000 people on there. So it'll be kind of that speaker just talking, but there's a lot of really great speakers. So so that's how this is going to work. Getting to the location, one note I want to make is everything is at 5:30. Everything we're doing on here except the 23rd. The 23rd is an all-day field day. That is an option. So I'm going to back up real quick and say the requirements are that you do 6 out of the, I think there's 18, 19, 20 different classes here. So you have to do 6 out of those classes. You can pick and choose. You can do all in person, you can do all virtual, or you could do a combination thereof of whatever works for your schedule. This is the difference between 2019 and today is instead of having 7 sit in the classroom sessions and you only miss one, here you've got 20 different sessions and you can pick or choose whatever works for your life. Things happen, all kinds of things happen. So if you need to join driving down the road on your phone, that works too. You're sitting in the tractor, you got bale hay later on this year, that'll work too. So that's the way this has all been designed. So it fits your life and it fits what in your learning styles. So as we go through there, the 23rd is an all-day field day. For some of you, a lot of you, you're working, it may not work. Maybe something that you're really interested in doing, but this is an event. It's not just being put on by us, it's being put on by the whole UP system in the research station. So for those that don't know, this 1000 Maintenance Drive Spring Hill, this is the research station. So many of you may find it's between Spring Hill and Columbia, about halfway. That's where our research station is located. So this is the all-day field day launched as part of that. And so if you want to take that as an option, you can certainly take that as an option to come participate. It's a great event. But just so you know, it's not required. You're not required to take off work to make it happen. But it's certainly available and it will be a really great opportunity. But that's on a Friday. That's an all-day thing. All the in-person sessions are on Mondays. All the virtuals are on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Last year we had it all on Mondays, but it just didn't work out virtually for them to be able to do it all on Mondays again. But there's that. So anybody have any questions, just how that's going to work? So Peyton, if you want to scroll down just a little bit. So there's the schedule. And then we put the kind of how the requirements and costs work. But if you'll scroll down. So just so you know, when you go through this class and you pay and you did your BQA, that is good for 3 years. So I will see you guys next in 2025 if you want to keep it to the minimum. And we have a few people in here that are auditing it. They just wanted to come back just to see some things, so they can come back anytime and audit. But your certification for the class and your BQA is good for 3 years. So that'll put you at 2025. The Cattlemen's is an annual membership, so you can choose to or not to re-up that each year. That's on your own, but you just have to have it renewed every 3 years. So if you've got any questions, for the most part, I've tried to put a lot of questions that typically pop up in this FAQ section under the Master Beef. You're welcome to check in there, see if there's anything there. But if not, it's not a big deal. Just give me a call. I'm pretty liberal with my numbers. So I want you guys to have a resource rather than trying to scramble to find somebody that works between 9 and 5, however that works. So any questions on the Master Beef class? The structure of how it's going to work out. So we'll try to have a sign-in sheet in each session, so make sure you try to find that that table when we get there. But for the most part, we'll try to just keep the thing. We're worried about keeping the thing going and making sure we have a quality class. So anybody have any questions? Online? All right, excellent. All right. So we're going to go through. One of the things is, as we've been putting on our website, so I hope many of you will take the opportunity to visit. And I'll send this to you guys, so you'll have access to all this information that we have here. Most of it's online. I'm just kind of pointing it out and telling you where it's at, because you might need one of these services along the way. So this is all through our website. So if you'll click first, is a service break. I think this is the most valuable session or the most valuable content that we have for those that are working on the farm or new to this area, new to farming. And sometimes stuff happens, life happens, and you have to figure out what to do. If you've been here for a long time, you might have a network of people that you can call that knows somebody and can get you the right answer. Sometimes you don't have that network yet, so you need to know. So we've, over time, tried to put together this service directory. Let me tell you the key is only as good as the information I'm providing. So this is based on, I don't go through and say, yeah, I don't like this person or this person I don't trust or whatever it is. I give the information that is given to me. So if I know that somebody that hauls livestock, they can send me their information. I will get them up there and I don't vet it. So, doesn't mean they're the best livestock hauler. Now, I'm not saying that discredit this whole thing, saying that we're putting a bunch of people out here that I wouldn't want to deal with you guys. But there's not a priority. I don't rank them by the order at which they're put on this website. But so we've tried to add, if people tell us that they offer a service or they know somebody that's done great service, we'll put them on here. So if you could go to hay provider. So Jackie, doesn't mean you're the best hay provider in the state. Jackie does have great hay though. But as we've gone along, we tried to put people on here that have told us that they have hay available. Typically, obviously, this year could be a little bit different. But if you're looking for hay providers, you can go there and start working your way down through a list where you want based on location of where they're at, the type of hay they have. If you see somebody that's not on here that you think, or that you yourself provide hay and want to be on here, send me your information. That's kind of the information ID. You can see submit service provider. Send me that information. But this is a great resource for just finding out who can haul livestock. I know many of you guys have used it in some form or fashion, but this is something that we really want to expand and hope it finds value. If it doesn't find value, it's not something we want to keep up to date because it takes a tremendous amount of work and labor to do it. But I hope it provides some sort of a starting point for you guys to be able to have a resource. So any questions on any of that regarding the service directory? So we'll send that. But it's a good starting point for a lot of things. Please, check it out if you're needing help. We'll go to farm visit real quick. So this is one of the most valuable things that we can offer and services we can offer is basically a farm visit, because I can sit here and talk about a lot of generalities to you guys and start talking about, this is what I would do, especially when you get into pasture. This is what I would do. But until I see what's specifically going on in your farm, it's very difficult to provide you a very specific scope and plan for what we might recommend doing. Because everybody's just got different situations, different fencing, different water, different animals. And so it's really hard to be able to do that. So this is free. It's a free service. The only thing being is if right now we're okay to do it for free. The county may change and say, yeah, if you're driving outside the county, maybe you ought to have like a service fee or something. So if we do anything like that, it'd probably be $20 at the most. But right now we're not doing that. So I'm here to try to help as much as you can. So you just have to be, make the request, and then I'll do my best to be able to work it into the schedule. There's a lot of you sitting in here, plus there's the entire equine world and small ruminant world. So there's a lot of people that are really wanting to utilize the service. So we'll do your best to make sure we can do it as quickly as possible. But it's hands down the best way to get a specific plan for what you guys have got going on. So I encourage you to take advantage if you can, or if you want to. Okay, we go to sample analysis. So real quick. Sorry. So sample analysis. So we'll get into this much later, but just so you know where to find it. These are your best dollar for dollar expense you're going to find when it comes to any expense in the farm. Forage sampling and soil sampling. Your grass can't grow if it doesn't have the right environment. And that's just the plain and simple truth of it. And the only way to do it is with a forage or a soil sample. There's just no way. You can't test it really by going through getting one of those Home Depot kits. You're just not going to get a true analysis of your soil. But it hands down the best thing, because if you don't have the right nutrients, your grass doesn't grow. If you spend way too much on nutrients or not near enough, your grass doesn't grow, or you waste a whole bunch of money. So the key is getting the right amount of nutrients, and we'll go through the correct nutrients as we start to talk about some of our forages and things like that. But the best value. And then forage analysis, especially they'll start talking a lot about that in nutrition. And that's getting an idea of your hay. You know, you can look at your hay, you can get kind of visual analysis, and that's going to give you a rough idea, but it's like anything else. If your doctor doesn't just, if he wants to know what's going on with you, he doesn't just look at you. He goes, okay, I want to send you down to get a blood analysis, because I want to figure out actually what's going on inside. And so that's kind of what's going on here. We can tell you what it looks like kind of on the outside, but trying to figure out what exactly is going on, what's the exact nutrient content takes a forage analysis. And so a lot of information you can be found here, but that'll be referenced, I'm sure, in lots of different forms and fashions as we go throughout the year, both in the in-person sessions as well as the virtual sessions. Just so you're knowing where that's at. All right. Let's go to resources. Yeah, you got to kind of click above. There you go. Yeah, go actually go back. If you'll go up to escape and go back, or go back to one of these, and then just go up there to ag beef. We'll scroll down. So here's the beef landing page. So we'll scroll down. So keep going. And resources. So this is a lot of great resources. And I don't want to go through all of these, but these are things that I find really important. Either you guys don't necessarily know about them, or that you guys reference them a lot, and this is where I'm sending you. There's a lot of great information on here that you're going to need for your operation throughout a given year. A lot of different programs, manuals, emergency kits, things that I think just are really important. So that's a great site to visit and to be able to utilize. Another one, we don't have it on there, but it says the Williamson County Cattleman. That's the Williamson County Cattleman's Facebook page. It's basically a buy-sell trade page. So if you're looking to do, say I got hay or I got a service, I'm selling a trailer, it's a great place to join and just post items, sell items, see what other people have got going on, posting programs. So it's a great buy-sell trade for a local area. So it's to take advantage of that. So I'll send that all to everybody when we get a chance. And then we'll save that one. But this is an Ag Enhancement page. And so this is an Ag Enhancement page. You know, the Ag Enhancement, well, we'll get into that. But any questions regarding any of the help cert websites? So I hate to spend time going through your website, but I think there's a lot of great information here that fits what you guys need or answers some of the questions that you guys are looking at. So I just want you to be aware. And you know, once we leave here, life happens and you don't have time to sit and cruise and things. But now you kind of know it's there. You might be able to find that a lot easier when you're looking for it. Any questions? I knew this would be an easy group. All right. All right, so we'll get into the fun stuff. All right, so it's kind of our two of ours hiding my. So this is the ag. This is Ag Enhancement. So has anybody in here never heard of Ag Enhancement? Okay, I didn't think so. So Ag Enhancement is a cost share program. So this whole thing, the Master Beef course is a program through the University of Tennessee. The cost share program is a program through the Tennessee Department of Agriculture, and then the other third partner is the Tennessee Cattlemen's Association. And so one provides the education, one kind of provides like the database resource, and one provides basically the money, which is the Tennessee Department of Ag. So whenever you talk to me about Ag Enhancement, or whenever you need something from Ag Enhancement, I don't have the database. I'm not the final answer on anything. I will give you my best educated guess. I have lots of knowledge about how things kind of work and how they should work, but it doesn't mean that I'm the final answer. I can't be the final answer. I'm not the one that approves the dollars. So sometimes if you, on the eve of October 7th, which is the deadline, and you call me at 9:00 p.m. and say, hey, I'm having a hard time with this, I don't have any way to be able to solve the right answer on some of this because it is run through the Tennessee Department of Ag, so I can't access the database, but I will do my best to work on there. I have followed on the sword numerous times at the Ag Enhancement Office that I screwed up to trying to help you guys out. So, and I will continue to do the same. But just kind of know I can't provide the exact answer that they're looking for. I have a pretty good idea what their answer would be, and I'll give you that opinion, but I'm not the final say. But so the Tennessee Ag Enhancement Program is a cost share program. It was developed, if you guys want the history, when we had the tobacco settlement. Basically what happened was Tennessee cattle were going out west, and the packers and the feedlots and the packers were saying, these are some of the worst cattle in the country. We don't want to pay anything for these cattle. And so they were worth nothing. And so what they decided was one of the number one things they wanted to do was try to improve the genetics so they can improve the cattle heading that way. So they had the windfall of the tobacco settlement came their way. They had this big lump sum of money. So they decided to allocate a chunk of that to this Ag Enhancement Program they're going to develop, and they're going to use that to help improve the genetics, encouraging people to breed with better bulls. And so that went for a couple of years, and I mean, they saw almost immediate results. Even if you started out as way out here, if you just narrow down that pool just a little bit, where you pull off those really poor-ended bulls on each end, you're going to improve the genetics. And so they saw, hey, man, we saw some great improvement, and we're starting to see some economic impact in our community. So we can see when we invest $1 that we're getting that return in that community and statewide. So two things happened after that. So for one is the tobacco settlement money ran out, and then they had to make a decision, and it was a no-brainer because you took a program that had an impact every county and every state representative and every senator there was representing one of those counties that was being impacted by that Ag Enhancement money. So the no-brainer, they went ahead and said, hey, we're going to make this part of the recurring budget every year. To this date, I believe it is $27 million now that it's part of the Ag Enhancement recurring budget. And really the only thing that I see different about that, going forward in the future, and chances are it's probably going to go up. It's just that beneficial of a program. We've got a great governor right now that really supports as a product of of agriculture, and so it's been related to the Ag Enhancement Program. So we hope that we've got a great commissioner of agriculture. They just both happen to be from Williamson County, so we're excited about that. But they're both big supporters of agriculture, so we hope that continues to go forward. So the second thing that came along was, hey, we continually, when they drove around the state, they saw all this hay sitting outside. We'll get into the nutrition side of it. They saw the hay sitting outside. So hay that sat outside for 6 months in time to fed the cattle, and there was wastage just from the round bale feeders. Even then, we didn't have those. Was 50% of the bale. So you're talking about at that time, if you've got a $20 bale, you're losing 50% of your money. As soon as you set it out, you just lost 50% of your money. And so we start talking about that. You start talking about now $80 bale of hay, because you can still set it out. $80 bale of hay, and you're setting it outside. You're going to have to buy 2 bales for that price. So even the quality, that's not getting into the quality even. That's just where they eat it. So building hay barns to be able to keep that hay under storage, increasing the quality of our hay, increases the nutrition of the cattle, and saves a lot of money for producers on that line. So from there, it has completely exploded. But not that you wanted to short the history of it, but that's kind of the history of that, and that's where it's trending to move forward. Those are still two huge components of our program: hay barns and genetics. Obviously, we started out here, we narrowed it down, and now we're pretty close to right in here. I mean, it takes a heck of a good bull to qualify, and I don't know how many guys have been buying bulls that are outside of not being Ag Enhancement approved. It's pretty much gotten rid of a lot of those bulls. If you're not Ag Enhancement approved, it doesn't mean there's not good commercial bulls. You can usually track them back to a good registered bull and some good EPDs. So we've got great commercial bulls, we've got great registered bulls, and so we're getting some great cattle. So people now want Tennessee cattle, some of the best in the country, heading to those feedlots. So it's doing its job, and we're seeing return because they're continuing to invest in it from the state. But I want to go through as best I can, answer your questions. Some of you are new, have never gone through this process. Others are new. In fact, you got to remember every year or every 3 years. And so I want to make sure that we hit all the right deadlines. You guys know when to call me, know where you can find some resources as we go along. Let's see. Yeah. Let's see all this. All right. So this is on the website. So I have an Ag Enhancement website. You'll get all this information. But these are the deadlines, and so I'll just there's non-negotiables that we'll get into, but just go generally through the deadlines. October 1st through the 7th is coming up right away. That is the only time that you can apply. You can't apply any other time outside of that window. So don't. There's a few. Well, we'll get into that. Everybody always tries to figure out. So you apply October 1st through the 7th. Then you're going to wait a period of time. Everybody's kind of getting anxious, trying to figure out if they've been approved. But you're not going to get that probably till early December at the best, but the number of applications they've been taking every year, you're probably looking at mid to late December that you're going to get that. You're still not going to get your official packets. And so what you're going to do is they're going to send you a letter that says, hey, you've been approved for the program, and that's all you're going to get. Just know that whatever program you applied for, you got approved for. Then in January, you're going to get the actual reimbursement packet. That's the packet you'll use to get your reimbursement. Now there's a paper copy, and they're going to mail you this stuff, but you can apply both online and with in person with a paper copy. So you also get some information, but they're going to send you a packet probably in the mail either way. So you're going to get that, and that's the information you'll use. So do not throw that away. Mark that somewhere and put it somewhere special. That's the package you're going to use to get reimbursed, for whatever program and whatever you do get reimbursed. And so it's staged in different reimbursement deadlines. That's just because they don't get overwhelmed with certain amount of areas. And then you say, hey, I applied, I sent my reimbursement back on April 1st, and now it's June 30th, and I still haven't got my reimbursement. So by staging it out a little bit, they're able to get those a little bit quicker. So that's where the first deadline is going to be the livestock equipment. And so if you're thinking about livestock equipment, that's got to be done ahead of time. You're looking at April 1st is the deadline to actually submit it. So the way they have is in this reimbursement packet, they're going to put a declining fund. So if you apply and say, hey, I'm going to do livestock equipment, and all of a sudden life hits, and you've got more pressing matters you've got to take care of, and you just can't do it this year, even though you said you applied, said you're going to do it, you can't do it. They're going to send you this declining fund. So you have two options. One is not to tell them anything and just not use the money, and two is to submit this declining funds 1 month ahead of time. If you submit the declining funds 1 month ahead of time, they're going to say, hey, we know life happens, no worries. We'll see you again next year if you want to apply next year. You turn it in, and you just decide to, hey, I'm not going to do it, and I'm not going to tell anybody about it. They're going to say, hey, we understand life happens, talk to us in 3 or 4 years. And I'm not giving you an exact example, but they want you to notify them ahead of time. That you're not going to be able to do it. Okay, it allows them to be able to adjust that money and use it where they need to versus holding it back, and then you get to the end of the year and then they can't do it if it gets reappropriated. So we want to make sure this money stays in the Ag Enhancement Program. So when you see the declined funds, no hard feelings. Just make sure you send that information in. The other thing is just making sure. So you're looking at genetics being June 1 is the deadline, and then all other programs outside of those are going to be August 1 when it comes to that. So any questions on the deadlines? All right, great. All right, so here's the non-negotiables. Things that there's really, the Ag Enhancement Program is a great program in that they want you to succeed, they want you to benefit. It's not a gotcha program. They're not trying to find a way to get you. But they have to, in a lot of things, you gotta have some black and white things. If you get in the gray area and you got 74,000 people that applied last year, for total, it's really hard. So you have to have some black and white things on some of them, and some of them are just, it is what it is, and so just say, sorry, I'll see you next year. One of them is, you cannot apply, you cannot send your application in on September 28th and it arrives on September 30th. It's going into the shredder. So, if you send it, if it's postmarked to arrive on October 1st, it's fine. If it's postmarked to arrive on October, if it's postmarked October 7th, they will accept it. If it's postmarked October 7th. But if it just, you try to deliver an application on October 8th in your office, which, you know, encouraged, but if they do, they're not going to accept it. It is a hard. That's what you didn't get in 2019. Okay. You didn't get the wonderful world. Yeah. Okay. All right. So October 1st through the 7th, it is your deadline. Hard and fast. Mark that on your calendar. Everybody, most people in here have got a phone. When you're talking about the opportunities there are in agriculture for help, there's few and far between. This is the real one. This is a legitimate deal. This is really a great opportunity. So mark it on your calendar for a notification to go to you that October 1st through the 7th is your deadline. So if you get 2 months or if you need 2 weeks to have time, put that on your calendar that you need to remember that date, October 1st through the 7th. Every year, it's the same time every year. The next one, next biggest one that I get questions about, and oftentimes it's too little too late, is I purchased this hay barn on September 1st, or I purchased this bull on July 31st. And how do I get that in Ag Enhancement? You cannot get anything purchased prior to October 1st approved. So as you're going through the planning process, sometimes things happen, you just have to purchase an item and you don't have a choice. But if you're trying to get it through Ag Enhancement, you cannot get anything approved that was submitted prior to, or has a receipt date prior to October 1st. So as you're going through that process, make sure you think about that purchase. Now there are some things, obviously there's some bull sales that have been planned and yearly occur in September. And so they've been trying to keep them on the outside. So some of them that work with making sure that they get the receipt dates geared towards, and they know that they're occurring that way. The receipt dates are geared towards October 1st. But genetics is about the only one. Most of your livestock equipment companies, most of your breeders, everything, if you're breeding bulls and you want to have repeat customers, they're breeding, they know the guidelines. And so they're gearing up their bulls. They know the paperwork needs to be done. So when you go through a reputable breeder, they know the guidelines because there's money tied to it. So they're going to make sure they do it. So your barn builders, so many of these guys have been going on for so long, know what's going on. Still doesn't help for you guys to know what's going on so they don't take you down the wrong road because in the end, it's your money. And so make sure you do. October 1st is the first day you can actually purchase. Now, if you'll remember on here, I said that October 1st through the 7th is the application period, and I told you can't purchase anything prior to October 1st, but you don't figure out if you got approved for the program until mid-December. So once you apply on October 1st, you can actually purchase an item. Let's say you're going to go out and purchase some equipment or a bull. You can go out and purchase it. And so that expense is eligible. It is eligible for reimbursement. But the key being is that you're not guaranteed reimbursement yet. Until you get that approval letter, you're not guaranteed of getting reimbursed for that, but it is eligible. So you kind of run that risk when you do it. It said your application, as long as you met all the guidelines, it's not a gotcha thing. They're not trying to get you on. So it should not be a problem. But just so you know, that is an issue. They don't want to see, we'll get down, some of these aren't as big a deal. So, but those are the two biggest. They don't want to see husband and wife both applying for Ag Enhancement on the same farm. If you got two different farms, now if you each have a farm, you each inherited a farm, and you've got beef cattle on one farm, and you apply for, he or she applies for do your own Schedule F, and then the other spouse has their own Schedule F on the other farm, something different. That's two different situations going on. Let's say you both have a farm here and there, but you only do one Schedule F, IRS Schedule F. That is one operation, even though it's two farms, it's one operation because they're only filing one Schedule F. So they just don't want you to try to cheat the system. That's their biggest fear, is people cheating the system. The first year first couple of years, they saw a couple of hay barns they showed up, and all the hay sitting outside, the RV sitting sitting under the hay barn, and hay's all sitting outside. One of them within the first year, they went and visited the farm, because when you purchase something, it is eligible to be inspected, just to say, hey, you actually own it, or you actually have cattle. But they showed up, and it had been it was a nice living quarters. So they had sided it all in and put a living quarters and everything inside their hay barn. So somebody's out there always trying to think one step ahead, so they're trying to react. That's the way government works, is trying to react to the situation. And but that's kind of why we have some of these guidelines as we go through here. So one person can't apply for multiple program areas. You can't apply for livestock equipment and bulls or genetics. So you can only apply for one choice each year. So with your certification, you go through it every 3 years. As long as you maintain your certification, you can apply every year. Different areas, same areas, whatever it may be, but you're eligible to apply for Ag Enhancement every year. I don't know how many this affects, but there's a few out there. So if you have an adjusted gross income of more than 900,000, sorry, you're out. You're on your own. You don't get your $1,500 for livestock equipment. So these are a couple minor ones. When you go to submit something, you can't submit a quote, because this is based on you proving that you paid for that, and we're reimbursing you for that portion. Not we're covering half of your bill, we're reimbursing you. So if you submit in your reimbursement, it can't be a quote for something that doesn't prove that you actually paid for it. So it's got to be a paid invoice. And the other, just finalize what we're taking care of right now, is the BQA, is making sure that your BQAs are up to date. So we have to have that in by October 1st. So that's why we're trying to get all this stuff put together. So you may probably see that multiple times as we go throughout the emails. But anything on the non-negotiables, they're pretty clear, cut and dry. We just don't want anybody making mistakes here. So these are some that we can't correct. Okay, go ahead. All right, you'll pull that up a little bit. So here's the programs. We're not going to go deep into this, because this is more about you trying to figure out where you want to go, what works for your farm. These are the updated numbers for this program year. Some have gone up, some down. We're looking at, for most everybody in here, I think almost everybody in here, this is the A stands for application A, B stands for application B, C stands for application C. So I don't believe we have any poultry growers in Williamson County. And I doubt you'd be in this class if you were a poultry grower anyway, but there's an option for that. Producer diversification, you may know somebody that's interested in that. You start to get into agritourism, like high tunnels, things like that. That's where we start to get into producer diversification. So there may be somebody you know that's eligible for that. That program is available too. There's slightly different guidelines for that and how that goes. But this is primarily where you're going to see some information. So obviously livestock equipment, that's a mile wide and a mile long as well. But livestock equipment, this is one of the few things where you can have used equipment. Some items that are actually in this program can be used. Very specifically, it's not any item you want to do. It's very specific items that can be used, like working panels, food chutes, and things that they're in good working condition. They can be used, and it very clearly states which items can be used and which ones have to be new. but that's livestock equipment. You'll see that. Genetics for the primary that involves primarily it's going to involve bulls, heifers, and like I said, everything is got a specific parameter. You can't just go out and go buy a bull and say, okay, I'll reimburse my half. The idea is to improve the quality. So they have to be certain guidelines. AI also falls under that. Permanent working structures, that's to cover your working equipment. And so that is cover the actual equipment. So the only thing permanent working structure, the only thing, if you apply for that, you're applying for the cover over something. So you have to have working equipment to be able to apply for that. So you don't apply for the working equipment under working structures, that's under livestock equipment. Herd health, that is one that has changed a little bit. We'll kind of get into some of those, but that is, it says herd health. We all need, I hope it's known whether you're going to the class is the first time or the 30th time, that it's important to maintain herd health. The healthier cattle is the biggest difference between making money and not, honestly. And so it's really funny as you start to get into a lot of these animal rights groups and things like that, that producers are the mean ones. They're the ones that are doing wrong, when actually by them maintaining happy, and you quote happy, but healthy animals that are not under stress, they're going to maintain and have the best quality animals and equal the best quality price. So it's kind of an odd argument, but it is what it is. But herd health is they're trying to encourage people to do the right vaccinations, be able to castrate, they'll do a lot of good maintenance programs. But really what it is it's a record keeping payment. And so it's not straight 6,000, it's actually more of a per head payment. Like if you do the basic vaccinations, deworming, castration, that might be worth $15 a head. Then they do some other things about using the right tag, pregnancy checking, and quite a few other options. That'll start to add per head dollar amounts to that. And so that there was a huge increase there, but that's a record keeping. So my recommendation after talking to a lot of vets and working through a lot with you guys, I'm trying to backdate this stuff and get this done at the last moment. It's not a last moment thing. It is a record keeping thing. So you start talking about, hey, you're running 150 head through, and now you're going to try to do submit that in the last second. It's not that easy. It is a record keeping thing. So you got to know when the animals were actually processed, what vaccination was given, what date, what's the expiration, and there's just a lot of that stuff in there. So very easy, but communicate that ahead to your vet so that you guys can work on a plan to do that shoot side or whatever that may be and get it done ahead of time. It is a record keeping thing. So few of these things have a lifetime limit on the number that you can do. This one is truly hay storage is a lifetime limit, and herd health is the lifetime limit. Herd health is, most of these are roughly a 50% cost share up to a certain max. And so these are the maxes up here. So herd health is more of a dollar for dollar payment, but it is truly a dollar for dollar payment. You put $1 into your cows, they pay you back $1. So that's why they limit you to 3 times, because they're saying, hey, we're almost paying for you to do this, and so you ought to figure this out and hopefully see the advantage of it as we're going through. So I encourage you, if you're going through this, you've been doing it for a few years, or you're just not sure what you're going to do, and you're like, I'm not sure I'm going to do it this year. If you feel that way, do the herd health, because it's going to cover your cost of your vaccinations for that year, dollar for dollar. Everything else is 50%, but well, I shouldn't say quite 50%. I don't know if you can build a hay barn for $14,000 or $10,000, but that one is truly worth its money right there. I knew it, Jackie. I knew it.
Probably Jake. You didn't hear what you said.
So some of these others, obviously, dairy solutions probably doesn't affect too many. Livestock solutions is for operations that are 100 head and greater. So we'll get into that a little bit later. Hay storage, so hay storage rotates with hay equipment, so this year hay storage is on, next year hay storage will be off, and hay equipment will be back on, so those are two high cost items. That they try to alternate because their budget wise, they're trying to make their dollars go further and won't do it with those, both those items on there, so you'll notice that this is where it was at 5-6 years ago, and then it went down to $5,000. We'll kind of get into here, and it's back up a little bit more. So they truly want it to be a cost share program where it's true to 50%. That's hard to keep up with 50% today's times. But this one and this one right here, the working pen and the hay storage are, you see $7,000. But they have parameters on them, and it's actually a per square foot reimbursement more than it is a $7,000 flat. You know, you turn in a barn that costs $14,000, you get $7,000 back. Well, if you build a barn that is built to withstand a hurricane, and it's got way more lumber than they would recommend for a barn in it, but it's a tiny little barn, then they're going to go back to the per square foot at $4 a square foot. It's really hard to build a barn for $14,000, meaning I think 900 square feet is their minimum square foot for a hay barn. So at $4 a square foot, when you're calculating out, that's the minimum that they use when they're trying to do it. And like I said, I have all this information, and it's on their website, ready to go. But hay storage is on there this year. So if you're interested in a hay barn, you get 3 of them in a lifetime. This is your opportunity. And so
At Summertown, I got one for 11 and one for 14. I don't know how much you are right now.
yeah,
That's a 40 to 60.
right
side.
So so they have very specific parameters. Most of you guys know what they're doing. But you're not bringing in somebody from pretty far out of state, from around this area. They know what they're doing as far as parameter wise. That's very clearly stated in the book. So and here at the very bottom. I'll try to get through here. Very bottom, final amounts are not determined until all applications are completed. So long. So 5 or 6 years ago, they had higher amounts, and all of a sudden they got an influx of people moved in, influx of people applied, and all of a sudden they went, oh, we've got more people asking for money than we have actually. So they just wanted two things. We can either say some of you are denied, or we can just overall come back and lower the amounts on everything so that everybody still gets some money, but you're not going to get all the money that we said you're going to get. So they didn't want that to ever happen again. So they went ahead and artificially dropped everything down. So if that happens again, they're in a good enough situation with padding wise that they can still promise you what they listed on here. They can still give you that amount. But what was happening, I think you applied for Ag Enhancement last year, you'll find is that they said, okay, livestock equipment, I think it was $1,600, $1,500. And they got all the applications in. Basically what happens is if they don't get a whole bunch of hay equipment, some of these big high cost dollar, the poultry, the producer diversification, row crop, if they don't get a whole bunch of those, then they have some more money to be able to spread out. So when they get all the applications, they see who would all applied, then they go, hey, we have an X number of dollars left in our pot. And so they went back and they actually bumped up. So hey, I think hay equipment went from $5,000 to $7,000. Livestock equipment went from $1,600 to $2,000. So it's not a promise, it's not a guarantee. If you're purchasing based on what you're getting reimbursed for, do it based on the number you're seeing here. But there's potential that when they get all their applications in, they might come back and be able to add on top of that. So it's not a guarantee, but it's great they manage that at least to return some of that money back to us. So any questions on any of this? Like I said, we're going to go through this. There's a lot right here. So we're going to go through it as we go, just to make sure you guys stay on top of things. Just real quick here's some things that are new this year. If you've never been through the program, it's all new to you, but if you've been through it multiple times and applied, some just new ones. Herd health is obviously increased, so they really want to incentivize you to vaccinate and take advantage of this program. So like I said, I've said enough about it. I encourage you to do it. Genetics, just make sure every year all the breeds go through there and they update their parameters. Again, we're talking about we're narrowing it down. We're continuing to improve the quality of the cattle. So when your bull breeder should know this and they have this, and so they're the ones that help determine the guidelines for here. So make sure you just go through there and look at the guidelines. When they look at your EPD, you can call me too and say, hey, I just want to make sure this bull I'm getting ready to purchase qualifies for Ag Enhancement. They can help or I can help either way, but make sure he does. Trichomoniasis is something that you're starting to see when people sell non-virgin bulls. You get into somebody's had a bull for 3 or 4 years, which is not qualified for Ag Enhancement. Just let you know, you start selling some of these bulls, you're trying to chase a new bull, and you're looking to purchase one of these 3 or 4 year old bulls. Trichom is a really contagious disease. It's bad news if it gets in your herd. So you bring a bull in that's got it, then you've got on your farm, your cow's gone, and it's a very problem to deal with reproductive wise. So if you're going to bring one in, doesn't mean that you can't bring a 3 or 4 year old bull in. It's not always the best decision, but you can do it. Make sure they get tested. Make sure you do a breeding soundness exam and make sure you test for trichomoniasis included in that. So you don't bring that on them. If not, it's a bad news situation. We're working on sometime in maybe spring of doing a BSE drive-through clinic basically here. If you want to get a bull BSE tested, we may do some vaccination, but we're probably going to start with a BSE clinic where we'll have a couple of vets here on one of the Saturdays. We'll set up, you can drive through, drop off your bull, get him tested, load him back up and on your way. So if you're so hopefully reduce your cost. So you're not having the trip fees for your vets and things like that. You just pay the straight BSE cost. And I think that might, if you apply for herd health, that might be covered with that. So added this year for livestock equipment, livestock trailer is on there, a pasture drag harrow and a wick applicator. And then the hay working facility was increased from $3 to $4. So there's a couple of things on there. So I think we've got one last one real quick, and then so for those that don't meet, there's a minimum requirement for all of these programs, whether it's a small ruminant, master beef, goat and sheep. So for the regular programming, it's 30 head of cattle is your requirement, or 100 acres of hay qualifies you for Ag Enhancement. 30 head of cattle is not 30 mama cows. It's roughly 15 mama cows having 15 calves, 14 mama cows having 14 calves, when a bull, and then you got 30. So at a given point in time, you have 30 head of cattle. Doesn't mean that when the day they come out there and invest, just to check, make sure you have cattle, and you don't have 14 because you just hauled the other 15 off. As long as you can prove that you have 15 or 30 at one point in time, you're good to go on that. So that qualifies you for the regular program. Well, this past year they had they brought on the beginning farming option. So obviously you've got a lot of farmers. For the first time farmers, you're trying to figure out how to just make a go of it, and you can't afford to start with 15 head of cows. And so maybe you can start with 5 head. And so you of all people probably needed the Ag Enhancement option the most and weren't eligible for it. So they started beginning farming options. So if you have anywhere, so last year it was basically 1 to 29. So now they bumped it up to 5 to 29. So if you have 5 to 29 head and don't qualify for the regular option, you've got 2 years. Well, right now it's 1, but it should hopefully be 2 years. So if you applied last year, you can apply again this year. So if this is your first year, you can apply this year. And my thought is they're going to allow you to apply again, but you get 2 years where you can apply for Ag Enhancement and get the regular funding that everybody else does. So you still get all those numbers previously. You still get all those options. But you have obviously a lot less cattle. So the biggest thing here is that right now, if you start, you have to start your farming started after 2012, after January 1st, 2012. Before that, it wouldn't count. there's still plenty of people out there, but, so last year, they only gave you 3 years, and you've been farming the last 3 years, so now they bumped it down to 10 years, so hopefully that continues to expand, but right now, that's the qualification. And then you have to go through this farming fundamentals class, which is available in January. If there's anybody in here that fits those parameters, we can talk about it a little bit later, so I'll make sure that y'all, everybody gets squared away on that one, but there's a good option for people they're below the requirements, but still want to take advantage of the cost share opportunities. So real quick, the way this typically works here, obviously there's an online version that you guys can do, and I can help you set that up if you need for applying online. But also the way I typically do it, we'll send notification, is I'll take probably the last day, October 7th, and I just say, I'm leaving this office at 1 p.m. and I don't leave 1 minute later. So if you show 101, I won't be here. And I'll take any application I get that week. I'll take them all, and then I'll just hand deliver them to the Ag Enhancement office in Nashville, and you make sure that your application gets received. So if you need any help filling out the application, you can call me. We'll kind of go through that. We'll talk about that as we go, but just so you know that option is available. All right, let's see. All right, so any questions before we begin this? And we'll try to speed through this as quickly as you can. But any questions that you guys have regarding any of the resources that are available or Ag Enhancement, that we're going to go through this and hopefully we can just have some good conversations as we go along. But there's a lot of information there. Don't feel overwhelmed. I'm here for you guys all along here. Just don't ever hesitate to give me a call whenever. It's easier to deal with the question when it pops up in your head and when you forget about it, or you wait for they call me on Monday or whatever it is. Don't feel that you have to wait. So, all right. So this is the beef quality assurance. It is a video training. I'll try to fill in a little bit years ago, but they wanted to standardize beef quality assurance across the state, and I knew that everybody was getting the same exact information. So it's been voice recorded by some of our specialists along the way. But the point of this is started out is every time we gave shots in what section of the animal? If anybody's been good, you only gave the rump. You gave it right in the rump, right there. We didn't think a thing about it, and away they went. Well, eventually those animals would end up in the processors, and they go, the rump is obviously a pretty valuable section of meat. They end up in the processor, they start opening them up, taking off the hide, and they just see these huge abscesses. And so they have to start throwing away some of the most expensive meat. And so that sent an alarm in the system. It starts working its way down, and that's what they're saying. We need to improve our beef, our quality assurance of our animals. So we start to get it in the triangle on the neck. That valuable cut is not near as valuable as the rump. So they're not throwing away and wasting near as much money. So today, it's now about are we producing an animal that is environmentally sustainable, humane way, and ultimately we're producing our animals for the consumer. So making sure that we are producing an experience, an eating experience, and a quality experience that makes them want to come back to us. And so the beef industry is the hardest one to manage that. Pork industry, poultry is vertically integrated. They control every step. They make a decision up top, all of a sudden it comes down and everything can just change in a heartbeat and they can respond to the consumer. Obviously the beef industry, you're all individuals and you operate in your own different ways. And so when they send changes down and we've got animals that take much longer in the breed and the gestate, those decisions are very slow. And the quality eating experience is pretty variable. And so that's where they're trying to make sure. So that's where the point of this is to make sure who we're going through and raising animals for. So Peyton, if you'll kind of navigate through this, we're going to skip some sections. And those you guys want to see an extra, we're going to cover those later on.
Welcome to the Tennessee Beef Quality Assurance online training. The Tennessee BQA program is offered and managed by the Tennessee Cattlemen's Association.
Have a
The
hard
educational
time.
materials are developed and delivered in partnership with UT Extension Beef Cattle Specialists in the University of Tennessee Department of Animal Science and county agricultural and natural resources agents across the state. Beef quality assurance was developed to ensure that beef and dairy cattle are managed in a manner that will result in safe and wholesome beef products for the consumer. This statement is not only the definition, but also the overall goal of BQA. The consumer drives demand. The level of consumer confidence in beef products significantly affects consumer eating habits and impacts the future of our industry. Consumer confidence is essential if we are to stake our claim in the meat case. More specifically, BQA is designed to enhance carcass quality by preventing drug residues, injection site blemishes, and bruises in beef cuts. The Tennessee Beef Quality Assurance Program is based on recommended national guidelines that are guided by scientific research. All sectors of the industry, from seed stock, cow-calf.
You guys got it, right? We'll go to the next one.
Beyond food safety, the economic importance of BQA can be seen when analyzing the most important quality challenges in the production of beef. The 2000 National Beef Quality Audit showed that the industry lost an average of $100 for every fed steer or heifer marketed. A new beef quality audit is initiated every few years to make sure the industry keeps pace with changes in consumer demand. In 3 of the audits, defects in the hide and lack of uniform size of ribeye and other cuts of meat were identified. In the 2005 National Beef Quality Audit, inadequate tenderness, excessive external fat, insufficient marbling, and excess carcass or cut weights were identified as the major factors affecting meat quality. For the first time, the 2005 National Beef Quality Audit identified individual cattle traceability and the need for instrument grading, clearer market signals, and communication among sectors as areas that the industry must address. In the 2016 audit, 32% of fed cattle and 63% of non-fed cattle had bruises compared to 34% and 85% respectively in the 2011 audit. The economic loss to the industry in 2016 due to bruises was estimated at $1.90 per head, an estimated total of $5.5 million. In 2011, that number was estimated at $6.7 million. All meat industries face similar concerns. By following BQA guidelines and management practices, beef and dairy producers increase the value of beef products in the eyes of the consumers while enhancing their stewardship of natural and financial resources. This diagram illustrates a general overview of the movement of cattle through the conventional beef production chain. Beginning with commercial cow-calf ranches, females are bred to produce a calf each year, and that calf is maintained on the cow until weaning. Bull calves are usually castrated at or before weaning and move on to the next phase. A percentage of heifers that meet the quality standards are usually retained and developed as replacements for mature cows that need to be removed from the herd. Heifers that do not meet the quality standards to be retained move on to the next phase. Calves leaving a cow-calf operation with the intentions of being harvested are usually referred to as feeder calves and range from 4 to 9 months of age. It is important to realize that revenue from cull cows and bulls make up a significant percentage of a cow-calf operation's income each year. The more modern term for culls is non-fed cows and bulls because they reach maturity while being maintained for reproduction and did not go through the finishing phase. Establishing a herd health plan will help decrease the risk of food safety and beef quality defects. A year-round management calendar is a good tool. UT Extension Beef IRM calendars are available annually through your local extension agent. The calendar shows dates recommended for major herd activities, as well as suggestions for pasture and crop management. Accurate record keeping is the foundation of a good herd health plan. This is especially useful when an annual review of the cow herd is being performed. Having records on individual animals helps you determine if cows are working for you or if you are working for your cows. It is critically important to record all treatments of individual cattle and groups of cattle. Click on the notepad icon to see examples of information you should record on a treatment sheet. A good herd health plan includes a variety of animal health management practices. This section outlines the components of a good herd health plan. Deworming your herd correctly includes providing the correct dosage. Inadequate doses of dewormers will promote resistance. Good biosecurity practices can help promote and prevent diseases. When bringing new animals into a herd, it is always a good idea to quarantine them for at least 2 weeks. Animals tested positive for chronic diseases should be culled from the herd. Routine vaccinations are essential. It is important to properly store and label all vaccination containers. Proper needle safety and cleaning will be addressed in the next slide. Managing external parasites is a vital part of your herd's health. Bloodborne diseases can be spread rapidly from animal to animal with more flies and ticks present. The body condition of cattle will deteriorate when extra energy is being used to swat flies. Have an external parasite plan in place well before the season begins. Consult your local veterinarian to ensure the appropriate product is being used. Using the same external parasite control year after year will promote resistance. Utilizing a defined calving season will allow for better use of management practices such as vaccination and adequate feeding. If an expected calving date is known, it is more likely that assistance will be available for a cow or heifer who needs it during the birthing process. Routine pregnancy checks are an important part of maintaining a defined breeding and calving season. Use disposable needles and syringes. Heat sterilize reusable equipment, such as repeater syringes, by cleaning with boiling water. Do not clean injection equipment with disinfectant. This can render vaccines useless and may potentially reduce the effectiveness of other medications. The withdrawal time is defined as the period of time that must pass after the last dose is given until harvest of the animal. Drug residue in livestock products must be avoided. Customers are concerned about the drugs used in dairy and livestock production and how they affect the food they eat. The industry can address these concerns by assuring consumers that the necessary steps are taken to prevent drug residues. Consumers expect zero tolerance. Residue violations and condemnations can be avoided by taking the following actions. Maintain individual animal identification and keep complete medical records for at least 2 years. Properly store, label, and account for all medication. Use animal health products according to the label. Maintain a valid veterinary client-patient relationship, or VCPR, by visiting with your veterinarian at least annually, and educate all employees and family members about your control systems, emphasizing the importance of keeping drug residues out of the human food chain. Based on the 2000 National Beef Quality Audit, injection site blemishes or lesions cost the beef industry $188 million annually. This means that producers lost an average of roughly $7 per head each year from the potential value of the steers and heifers they marketed. Research sponsored by the NCBA on behalf of the Beef Checkoff demonstrated a negative relationship between meat tenderness and injection sites, including those injection sites that had no visible lesions. Furthermore, the researchers concluded that intramuscular injections, including sterile water, create permanent damage, regardless of the age of the animal at the time the product was given. At the very least, tenderness is reduced in a 3-inch area surrounding the injection site. To reduce injection site defects in economically important cuts of beef, the preferred site for all subcutaneous and intramuscular injections is the neck region. It is particularly important to use the neck region with intramuscular products because even the shoulder chuck primal contains value-added cuts that should be protected. Whenever possible, choose products formulated and labeled for subcutaneous rather than intramuscular injection. Subcutaneous injections are administered just under the skin, instead of into the muscle tissue, by inserting the needle at a 45-degree angle. Intramuscular injections are made directly into muscle tissue of the neck. Absorption of the drug is more rapid in the muscle than under the skin because it comes into direct contact with blood delivered to the muscle tissue. After the injection site is chosen, distract the animal by slapping the injection site firmly. Immediately insert the needle with a quick thrust. Broken or bent needles should never be used to give an injection. Also, bent needles should never be straightened and reused. To prevent the spread of blood-borne infectious diseases, use a new needle for each animal. This may seem time-consuming and expensive, but the loss of just one animal from a blood-borne disease is much more expensive than the cost of new needles and the time taken to change between each animal. Even if animals are not lost by the spread of disease by using a single needle on multiple animals, you are virtually certain to lose gain in your calf crop and have fewer calves from your mature cows and heifers. Again, using a needle on each animal might seem expensive and take a little extra effort, but in this case, cheap and easy equals less revenue and more work down the road. A drug usually requires veterinary prescription, indicated by RX on the label, when it has significant potential for toxicity in humans or animals, when it might have a unique method of use, or if its use requires other special considerations. Such products can only be used or dispensed by or on the order of a licensed veterinarian, and the label must contain the notation, "Caution, federal law restricts this drug to use by or on the order of a licensed veterinarian." Over-the-counter drugs can be purchased from multiple sources and must be used as directed on the label. For example, most over-the-counter procaine penicillin G products are labeled for use at 1 cc per hundredweight to be administered via intramuscular injection. So, a 600-pound calf would be given a 6 cc intramuscular injection. Producers are not allowed to change the dose or give the drug by any other route of administration. Extra label treatments may only be administered by or under the supervision of a licensed veterinarian and within the scope of a valid VCPR. A valid VCPR, or veterinary client-patient relationship, exists when the veterinarian has assumed the responsibility for making clinical judgments regarding the health of the animals and the need for medical treatment, and the client, owner, or caretaker has agreed to follow the veterinarian's instructions. The veterinary is readily available or has arranged for emergency coverage for follow-up evaluation in the event of adverse reactions or failure to the treatment regime. And the veterinarian has sufficient knowledge of the animals to initiate at least a general or preliminary diagnosis of the medical conditions of the animals. This means that the veterinarian has recently seen, or is personally acquainted with, the keeping and care of the animals by virtue of an examination of the animals or by medically appropriate and timely visits to the premises where the animals are kept. Consider what makes a good eating experience. Eating experience is impacted by portion size, tenderness, palatability, minimum excess fat on the cuts, consistency, and uniformity of the product presented to the consumer. Think about what cow-calf producers can do to affect the quality of beef. As these genetic and selection changes in targeted breeding are made, Consider the time it takes for these changes to impact beef products. Essentially, 2 years will pass from the time a breeding decision is made, cows go through gestation, and their calves go through the production phases in the beef industry until that final protein product is presented to consumers. Be very diligent and thoughtful about breeding decisions. Ask yourself this question: would you eat what you produce? Then raise all cattle with the intent that they will eventually be consumed as a food product. By targeting the production of optimum carcass characteristics, beef cattle producers affect the amount of beef consumed in relation to other protein sources. The per capita meat consumption of pounds of boneless beef has declined in recent years and is currently projected to continue its decline. Poultry products are taking over a portion of that beef share, with pork remaining stable. By adhering to the production of carcass characteristic targets described here, you can produce beef that consumers desire, and these trends could be changed to benefit beef cattle producers. Genetic selection is a powerful tool for producing a consistent and palatable product for the consumer. This goes hand in hand with the evaluation of live animals. Uniformity in cow herds is needed to help achieve genetic selection goals. With bull selection, avoid extremes in any one trait and target moderation. This is important for efficient production of a desirable product. Consider industry changes and the time lag between implementation of the genetic change to when the product reaches the consumer. With regard to replacement females, evaluate maternal traits as well as performance to retain good brood cows that will stay in the herd through many calving cycles. Also, manage calving interval by shortening the calving season to better manage and produce a more uniform product. One of the most powerful tools available for genetic selection decisions is expected progeny differences, most often referred to as EPDs. These are used to estimate how the offspring of an individual will compare to the offspring of another individual or group of individuals within a breed. Use EPDs to directly compare cattle within a breed and identify traits needing genetic changes. Then implement genetic changes using these EPDs. Another useful tool is live animal ultrasound. This technology provides an indication of the carcass characteristics of an animal without having to first harvest it. Use live animal ultrasound evaluation of yearling cattle to examine the amount of marbling in the ribeye muscle and at the 12th and 13th ribs. Use it to look at size of the ribeye and also to estimate the fat measurement over the 12th and 13th ribs. This information can then be applied in targeted breeding decisions to change the beef product presented to consumers. First, consider the size and type of cattle to be produced. Think about marketing to a window of acceptability with regard to live cattle characteristics. The most important live cattle characteristic is that they be between 1,000 and 1,350 pounds at maturity. This produces beef carcasses within the optimal size range of consumer acceptability. Cattle should be classified as a USDA muscling score of 1 or 2, and they should have a back fat thickness over the 12th and 13th ribs between 3/10 and 4/500 inch at the end of finishing. When making changes to cattle size and type, set target size as a tangible goal to work toward with regard to weight, frame size, and body type. Strive for consistency within cow herds. That, in turn, translates to consistency within calf crops. When evaluating cattle size and type, a couple of tools are available to use for live cattle evaluations. One of these tools is the USDA frame size grade, and the other is the USDA muscle score grade. The frame score basically indicates a growth pattern of the cattle and is related to slaughter weights at which cattle will obtain the target amount of back fat thickness. A smaller frame calf will reach that target at a smaller weight and size than a larger frame calf. The larger frame calf will take a longer time in the feeding phase to reach that endpoint, will reach it at heavier weight, and will yield a heavier carcass. A medium frame score will be the intermediate of those two. Market cows and bulls generate about 70 to 75% of non-fed beef, that is, beef not harvested from conventionally finished cattle. These cattle are often referred to as cull animals, but they are truly market animals that are part of the food supply. Important food items are produced from market cows and bulls, including roasts, steaks, fajitas, and ground beef. In addition, market cows and bulls are very important to producer profitability, accounting for about 15 to 20% of producer income. A good way to start responsible culling is by giving the herd a performance review. Consider cattle as employees and review these employees on a regular basis. Start with these checkpoints: eyes, mouth, feet and legs, udder, body condition score, disposition, reproductive performance, and disease control. Many culling management points can impact public perception. For example, cancer eye is something very visible to the public that can be identified when checking eyes. Lumpy jaw is another very visible example when checking the mouth. With regard to feet and legs, lameness is important to check to make sure cattle are sound and can properly function. Of utmost importance, do not allow downer cattle to continue in cattle marketing channels. After reviewing these checkpoints on responsible culling to improve herd productivity and efficiency, remember that cows and bulls are a very important part of the beef supply chain. These non-fed cattle are truly market cows and bulls. It is important to properly manage things like injection sites, the way vaccines and medicines are administered, and adherence to proper withdrawal times. Always adequately feed cows and bulls because bruising occurs more readily in emaciated cattle.
Chapter 4, Low Stress Handling.
We're gonna do all this in person.
Skip this too, or
Explain that.
Beef quality assurance programs require that animals be handled in a manner that will result in a high-quality product for our consumers. Transporting animals from farm to farm or to the market must not jeopardize the quality of product we have worked so hard to produce. Also, there is an economic incentive to properly transporting our animals. Cattle that are injured will sell for less, so taking steps to prevent injury in transit can result in a higher selling price. Similarly, cattle that are injured or bruised will have a greater degree of trim loss. This is particularly true for market or cull cows and bulls, which usually do not have enough fat cover to help prevent a degree of bruising. Animals suffering from weather-related stress will be more susceptible to disease. Taking care to follow these recommended transportation practices can result in higher beef quality, less trim loss, and fewer injuries, and a more profitable and productive operation.
If we don't tell the true story about how beef is produced, others will tell their version, and it might not reflect the true nature of the industry. News and social media are full of terms like factory farm, sustainability, and inhumane. Those words are often used to discourage the uninformed consumer from eating beef. One of the most effective ways to stop the spread of misinformation is to be accessible to the people in your community so they can see that cattle producers are concerned about the welfare of their cattle and conserving the environment to provide opportunities for future generations of cattle producers. Some cattle producers have a knack for effective communication with larger audiences and help counter misinformation on a broader scale. But you don't have to be a popular social media figure to improve the reputation of beef. More good can be done with tens of thousands of cattle producers across Tennessee taking every opportunity to set the record straight with the people that trust them in their extended families and local communities. Some people ask questions because they truly want to learn, while others ask questions to make a point or bait you into an argument. Arguments rarely change perceptions, and they often do more harm than good. To avoid arguments that have the potential to discredit your positive influence on the perception of the beef you produce, consider this simple series of steps when opportunities for advocacy arise. First, try to determine if the person asking questions about the beef industry sincerely wants to hear your side of the story. If it seems like they are more interested in proving an opinion they already hold, you might want to consider whether engaging with them is worth the effort. On the other hand, if they are sincerely interested in learning more, offer your first-hand experience in beef cattle production. You can also share resources that are based on unbiased scientific research and offer to answer more questions, or even invite them to visit your farm to experience the truth behind how you care for your cattle.
All right, congratulations. Fine. So, we're gonna sign off here in a second, so don't jump up when we stop recording, but, we're gonna, hold on a second. Just, so thank you guys for that. That's gonna conclude tonight's class. Just a reminder that, next Monday, we are gonna be on a farm. We're gonna be doing a pasture block. We're gonna be covering how to evaluate your pasture for just the amount of forage available, how you can quickly do that. We're gonna look at, we've got a lot of upcoming things. Hopefully this fall is gonna provide a very suitable environment for us to do some serious work. After the summer, did a little bit of damage on our farm. So we're gonna kind of go through some of those evaluations, just kind of, we're gonna pick a farm. We're gonna go there, and a lot of times it's pretty indicative of what's going on your farm, so we'll start walking through there, just asking and answering questions that you guys may have, just evaluating the pasture and determining what we would do going forward this fall. So hopefully that's always a popular thing, because whether you have a horse on there, whether you have goats, whether you have cattle on your farm, we're all grass farmers, and we just have different things being here. So we're all grass farmers in here. That's what we need to be called in class. Grass producer, but so remember, for each one of those, a farm visit, I can give you more specific answers. So we'll say thank you to all those that are joining us online tonight. We'll sign off here, and